Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's joining us live for this masterclass or who will be viewing the recording later on. My name is Andrew Lavoy. I'm the Design Challenge Coordinator for UV Startup and Innovation Collaboratory. And it is my pleasure to introduce Sophie Bautista-Sales, Managing Partner of We Are Solutions, who are going to be talking about the what not to be, how not to be an entrepreneur, the myths, the mess, and the mindset you need before you leap. So without further ado, Sophie, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for the introduction. And hi, everyone. So I'm really excited to be here and to talk about how not to be an entrepreneur. Some of you might be thinking, like, why is she going to be talking about something negative? But actually, the story behind this, this masterclass, while I was actually doing this, I was thinking about my journey as an entrepreneur and the things that I didn't learn or that I had to unlearn going through the journey of being an entrepreneur. So I want to share those things with you guys so that you would be able to unlearn the things that you probably are going through right now and kind of enhance the your journey towards entrepreneurship. So let's start. So, how many among you guys have seen this picture on Instagram with the hashtag entrepreneur life? And people will say, like, hey, if you become an entrepreneur, this is how it's gonna look like. This is you can go work on a beach, have the fun in the sun and have a lot of freedom. But the reality is, this is how you look like when you actually start out your business. You're totally stressed out because there's a lot of uncertainty. You have a lot of deadlines to meet. Some of those would actually be sending out invoices up until 2 a.m., just to make sure, of course, that you have money coming in. Now, being an entrepreneur, you're not the only one. In the US alone, there are about 28 to 42 million solopreneurs, and they make up about 85% of all small businesses. So, talking about entrepreneurship, there are actually hundreds and thousands that start their businesses each year. And unlike before, entrepreneurship is very accessible now. If you look into like the American history of business, like let's take a look at the Gilded Age. Who do you think were entrepreneurs back then? They were usually the people who have money, not so much of the a grand idea, right? But now, if you had, a wonderful idea, you can jump into starting your own business right away. But the truth is, you have to be very cautious about this. And this has been the statistics like since time immemorial. Like I remember when I was younger, like maybe when I was in high school, this was the same statistics that 50% of businesses actually fail when they get into their fifth year, and only 30% of the businesses that survive in their fifth year survive beyond their 10th year. So the real question is not really if you can start a business, but if you can survive and make that business thrive. So I'm sure that, you have all of these ideas going into your head. You might have encountered people, telling you like, oh, if you go into business, this is what's going to happen. Or like what I've mentioned earlier, if you go through social media, there's a lot of, you know, business owners saying like, it's easy. It's, being a business, starting your own business is a walk in the park. But let's bust some of these myths that you see online or that you maybe come across, because otherwise, if we don't break these myths, they're going to break you. So let's start with the first one. And that was the first one that you saw earlier. Something that social media is always talking about when you start a business, that you will gain freedom, that you'll be your own boss. You quit your 9 to 5 job, or you quit going to school so that you don't have any boss. But the reality is, you don't lose a boss, you gain more. Like, you'll have your clients. You can't just ghost your clients when something goes south. You have to address that. Or if you start taking on investors, you have to answer to them, especially when they're asking for progress, for reports, and whatnot. And then when you start scaling your business and you start hiring people like employees, then you're also accountable to them. So, like, for example, for us, when we started out, it was just me and my business partner. But now, since we are catering to about 30 clients, we now have a workforce of 20 people as well. So we are both accountable to our clients and our team members. And because you now have more bosses, it actually shows in the 2023 survey that 39% of small business owners actually work more than 60 hours a week. So I've come across this joke that said, like, you quit your 9 to 5, but now you're working 24/7. So do you really have freedom? The next myth to bust is you know you can just have a big idea and you'll be successful. Well, a big idea has to go a long way. Your idea doesn't need to be unique, you just have to execute it better. So just like, for example, the owner of Starbucks, if you know his story, he actually started out with Seattle's best, but he did something better in terms of, like, how to cater to coffee lovers. It wasn't just giving them a great coffee, but giving them a great ambiance. So now Starbucks is actually better than Seattle's best. So based on another statistics, 92% of startups fail because they don't execute properly. It's not that because they don't have great ideas, but they don't have a plan of, number one, what's going to make them um, stand out against the competition, or once they start to grow, how will they scale more efficiently? So that's why you have to have more than just a great idea. You have to see the future of if this will continue, where do I see myself? And the third myth that we're going to bust, and this is the last, is winging it. There's a lot of business owners who have that idea of, yeah, I'll figure it as I go. But you can't do that. You have to prepare when you start your business, which is why I'm sure that most of your business mentors would actually say, like, create a business plan. That's going to be your blueprint. It doesn't need to be perfect, but at least you'll be able to avoid some mistakes, and you won't, you know, burn a lot of cash doing those mistakes. So 42% of startups actually fail because they didn't do their research. So even if, for example, you're running a simple coffee shop, you definitely have to do your homework. You have to you have to check out other coffee shops. What are they doing? What makes them successful? What can they improve on? That way, when you start your own business, you already know what to do and what not to do. So just a little bit of reality recap before we go on to our next bit. So we talked about that you have to be very careful when you start your own business, so that you won't be one of the 50% of businesses that fail within the next 5 years. You also have to make sure that you avoid the pitfalls that other businesses have had, so that when you execute your business, you also won't fail. And by preparing, you won't have to expand yourself, or you won't be like other entrepreneurs who work 60 hours or 60 more hours in each week. So those are the myths that we have busted. And by busting these myths, you won't get burned out and you will minimize failure. And this now prepares you for resilience. Now that we've busted those myths, are you ready, or do you think that you're really ready to be an entrepreneur? Before we actually take a look at that checklist, let's see who solopreneurs are. So, really, most of the business owners, especially in the US, they are solopreneurs. Now, if I show you the profile of solopreneurs, please note that these are just bullet points and that it is not a general profile of who solopreneurs are. So solopreneurs before, and this was also my thinking of who solopreneurs are. They are young entrepreneurs who are tech geniuses chasing after unicorns. But in reality, they're not all tech geniuses. Like we've mentioned earlier, you can have a brilliant idea that does not involve technology. Most of the time, solopreneurs, or 50% of solopreneurs, are women. Why are most solopreneurs women? Because, like, especially when they start having a family, women would like to still keep on working, but be able to balance their home life and their work life. So, just like, for example, for me, I'm actually a mom. So, when I had the opportunity to start my own business, I grabbed that opportunity and that I'm able to work from home while earning my income and still take care of my daughter. So that is the reason why most solopreneurs are women. More than 50% of solopreneurs also have a bachelor's degree. Why is that? Because those who start their own business actually already worked for a different company and they learned the ropes of, like, let's say corporate America, or that they've enhanced their skill, and now they want to get out of the corporate world and do the things that they're doing for another company for their own company. So, for example, if one of our clients, she's an engineer, so now that she does very well as a as an engineer, she broke away from the company that she used to work with, and now she has her own company. Most solopreneurs also earn 100,000 to 300,000 a year without the need to outsource anything, or to hire people as part of their company. So they really are just doing business by themselves. We can say that these are some lawyers, architects, having their own practice, or even just basically financial planners or fractional CFOs. And the average age of solopreneurs are more or less 40. The If you're going to ask why, because probably, of course, most of you would not still be 40. The reason behind that, again, goes back to the 50% who have a bachelor's degree. They've already had the experience of working for another company, and they figure like, hey, why don't I just, come up with my own company, because I'm really good at what I'm doing. So that is why the average age of a solopreneur is around 40. But I'm not saying, guys, that you are not gonna be solopreneurs. It's just this is the statistics that I just want you guys to see. All right. But the biggest thing that I want you guys to take a look at would be the signs that if you're ready, or you might be ready. And this is not to discourage you guys, but I just want you also to have a self check. All right. So, what are the signs that you're not ready to go into business or to be a business owner? First is that when you panic, when things are uncertain, you have to, or, for example, if you don't get that grant that you were hoping, you suddenly get rattled and your brain just shuts down and you don't know what else to do. That is not a good sign that you're ready to go into business. The other thing is that you constantly ask for validation. As a solopreneur, you have a solopreneur, a business owner, whether you're working with a business partner, you have to have that internal validation. Like when you look at a situation, you already know, like, okay, I think I'm doing the right thing. And then you stand by that decision that you're making. And lastly, you might not be ready if you give up easily when results aren't there on time. Um, especially when you're starting out, there are a lot of things that you can't control. And if that actually makes you short circuit, then probably being an entrepreneur or a business owner is not a place where you should be. Now let's talk about how you might be already very much how you might be very ready to be a business owner. So when things break, you actually find ways on how to fix it. And that is what entrepreneurs are. You don't get rattled. For example, let's just say that one of your employees resigned. What are you going to do? Are you going to take on the tasks that that employee is doing, or are you going to delegate, the tasks among the other employees that you have? And then, of course, you take action instead of waiting for a perfect plan. In the world of business, there is no such thing as perfect. If it's perfect, it's then there is no room for growth anymore. So whenever you're in a situation where you can already take action, like so for example, for based on my experience, um when when we were starting out, my business partner wanted to list down like maybe 10 types of services for us to put on our website. And because I couldn't wait for him to decide which 10 we had to put on our website, I took action by just cutting it down to two and then I just put it on our website, and that is what made us successful already, like those two lines of business or those two types of services that we are offering up until this day. And he was very grateful that I didn't wait for him, to have that list of 10. And then of course you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like I've mentioned earlier, especially when you're starting out in business, there's a lot of things that you can't control, or that it may seem that they are uncontrollable. So you have to, or there's a lot of uncertainty, if that makes it sound better. So you have to be a little bit uncomfortable, and then eventually if you um eventually when you get to that point, then you'll just laugh about that being uncomfortable. All right. So now that we know, the things that would prepare you to be a business owner, the other thing that you guys have to prepare yourselves for would be the unglamorous skills that most people not really disregard, but maybe in their mind it might not be that important when you're running a business, but it's actually these skills are actually very important to keep your business alive. So first is, of course, financial literacy. And I know that for some of you who attended the accelerator program last summer, this is one of the things that you guys focused on, because it is very important that you actually know how um, when your money comes in, what are you actually looking for. So there are some business owners who think that, okay, since I'm generating a lot of revenue, then I'm already successful. That's actually not true, because even if you're making money on paper but you fail to manage your expenses, then your business is not really successful. So when you see that you are generating a lot of revenue, the next question that you should ask yourself is, where is this money going to go next? All right. And and rule of thumb most of the time is that you pay yourself first and then you pay your bills. And then whatever is left, then that is the money of your business. So as you can see down here, based on the statistics from the US Bank, that 82% of small businesses actually fail because they have issues with their cash flow. So, this is something that you have to be very cautious about when you start your business. You have to have financial literacy. The next one that you should enhance or learn is sales and persuasion. This was actually a skill that I have to admit is not or wasn't my strongest suit. I was always in operations when I was working in a in for another company. So if as part of operations, I was always the person on in the back office. I didn't deal with clients. I didn't need to sell anything or persuade anyone. But when you become a business owner, you can't just say that if my product is good, it will sell itself. No, you still have to sell your vision, or what is your product's value proposition. What makes you stand out against your competition? So like for example, for us, we are solutions is a virtual assistant services provider. There are a lot of virtual assistant services provider in the market, and what makes us stand out is that we don't have a very specific industry that we work with. We work with solopreneurs and emerging business owners, and that has been a very good value proposition for us. And later on, I will share with you that because of that value proposition, we didn't need to market as hard as our competitors. The next skill is resilience. So you can't have that mindset that everything will just go smoothly when you start your business. You have to have that mindset that failing, pivoting, and setbacks is actually something that is normal when you start your business. So a bit of story of We Are Solutions. So We Are Solutions is turning 4 years old um, in November. We weren't successful in the first 18 months of our company because we decided that we were going to launch two lines of businesses right away, that we were that ambitious. So the first line of business is the one that we currently have right now, which is the virtual assistant services. Virtual assistant services, where we provide admin assistance and online marketing support to small business owners or solopreneurs and emerging business owners. And the other line of business that we had or that we had in mind was to provide tech support for technologically challenged individuals, particularly older adults. So we spent like most of our 18 months building that line of business, the tech support line of business, where we even attempted to build an app. And then at the end of 18 months, we realized that why are we building an app when when we're already dealing with technologically challenged people? So even if it was very painful for us to shelf that line of business because it wasn't really making money, it was just burning cash, and this other line of business was already starting to grow, we had to shelf that and make a pivot and decide to just focus on one line of business. So, like I said, resilience is a very huge skill that you have to really learn. It makes you uncomfortable, but you have to have this in your back pocket, especially when you're starting out. The other skill, which I really appreciate myself, is networking. Most business owners think that, when you start business, you can do it alone. But the reality is, and you know this, guys, I'm sure you've heard this quote before, no man is an island. So therefore, you have to grow your connections. So as I mentioned to you guys earlier, we don't market as hard as our competitors. We don't market, we don't do social media marketing. We don't do um like print marketing, but because we do network a lot, most of our clients actually come from networking events. So whenever I'm there in Buffalo, and by the way, right now, guys, I'm here in the Philippines. So whenever I'm there, I do get to network, or I do get to attend most of the networking events that I can get my hands on. And the people that I get to know there, they either become our clients or they connect us to people who can become our clients. And so, like this month alone, like three of our newer clients, they were people that I met a year ago at a networking event, and now they've decided to be our clients. So if you are if you think that you're an introvert, rest assured I'm also an introvert. It's just not obvious that I am. And but when you go get yourself out there, and make those connections, you're gonna be an ambivert because you need it for the survival of your business. So I would recommend, if you want to start out your networking, one of the best venues for you to start it out is the Buffalo Open Coffee Club. I don't know if you guys have heard it. So the Buffalo Open Coffee Club happens every Tuesday, which is today, at 7:30 in the morning. I know it's too early, but the early bird catches the early worm. So 7:30 at Seneca 1. If you guys want to check it out, every Tuesday, that group is there. So based on a LinkedIn survey, 78% of startups do grow because of networking. So even if you are still just, thinking about a business concept right now, or you're at the start of your business, please do network. It does help a lot. And of course, aside from networking as a skill, you also have to be a systems thinker. Some say, like, it's very similar to that myth of, I'll just wing it and figure it out later. It's very similar to some people who think, like, okay, I'll just organize later. But the truth is, when you start your business, which is why, again, going back, that's why you have a business plan, because that gets you already organized of how you're going from start to finish, or from start to how you grow. So you all, like, for example, for us, when we started out, it was just me and my business partner running our business. And then eventually, we were talking about, like, okay, if we hit 10 clients, what is the next, or who is the next employee that we're going to hire? If we hit 20, our, what is the next support that we need? So things like that, you already have to kind of map it out. Like, even if it's not yet there, you already have to have that in mind. So since we've already talked about, um, the skills that you need as an entrepreneur. Now let's talk about the playbook of entrepreneurs so that you can survive and succeed being an entrepreneur. And because I'd really love for you guys to experience that. So the first, of course, is to prepare your journey into entrepreneurship. Of course, you might be thinking of the business plan, but it's not just your business plan. And don't think that, you know, the best time is to start now without any plan at all, but the best time is when you are actually prepared. So I'll be showing you guys some bullet points on how you can prepare your journey into entrepreneurship or business ownership. But please be reminded that, again, these are recommendations. You can do all of them or just some of them. So the first one is to work at a startup. And this is actually my experience. I worked with two startup companies before I decided to partner with my business partner right now. My first startup experience was with an IT company, and then the other was with a startup digital marketing company. So when you work with startups, you learn a lot, and that experience actually gives you the experience you need to start your own business without burning your own money. So that would be the best experience that you can have. If you don't want to work with a startup, or if you don't get a chance to work with a startup, another thing that you can do is to do a side hustle. So for example, you're currently a student, and you're very good with, let's just say, social media marketing. um, you can, work with another business owner, make that business owner as your client, and see from there. If you can retain that client, then great, you're on your way to becoming a business owner. Or can you, if there is a certain deliverable that you have um to provide to your client, are you able to keep that deliverable within the timelines? Okay, so freelancing or having a side hustle helps you get prepared to becoming a business owner. And the reason why I shared with you guys those skills earlier, that is also very important. Like, if you don't need to um, get all those skills, like be financially literate or that you are resilient. You can actually find a business partner or a partner who has those strengths. Because, like, between me and my business partner, we have shared strengths, but at least have a core skill or start building a core skill when or before you start your business. So, for example, if you're like, for me, I'm very good with operations. So I love doing or creating standard operating procedures. I like building systems. So if you have that, just continue building on that, or even learn a new skill. So let's just say something around marketing or something around sales. So those things will definitely help you when you start your own business. And this is the biggest thing, guys, especially when you decide that you really want to start your own business. You have to have at least 6 to 12 months savings, or have this in your bank account. Because, like, for example, between me and my business partner, I had to quit my full-time job. He didn't have to quit his full-time job yet because his full-time job was paying more. So we had that discussion of who quits their full-time job. And because I wasn't getting a lot from my previous company, I said, like, okay, I'm going to quit my full-time job, but I had to make sure that I had enough in my bank account, even if, while we were building the business. And um, like I mentioned earlier, since networking is very important, you networking isn't just about finding your clients, but that's also where you find your mentors and also your peers who can help you build your business. So, aside from being a member of the Buffalo Open Coffee Club, I am also a member of two chambers. I am a member of the Amherst Chamber and also the Orchard Park Chamber. And in those two chambers, in Orchard Park, their executive director is a very good mentor of mine. He was the one who helped us um, refine our marketing language And then for the Amherst Chamber, what I love about that is mostly the peers that I have at the Amherst Chamber, because we have what we call a pro networking group. So people in that group would actually give you feedback on, how to present yourself better, or how to make sure that you get to the right person who might really need your business. So this is how, or these are just some of the ideas on how you can prepare your way or your journey to becoming an entrepreneur. The other one, of course, is to prepare yourself to be profitable. Of course, I'm sure that everybody is in business here, not just because you have a great idea, but because you want also to have money. Now, the biggest mindset that we have to eliminate is that you're willing to lose a lot of money before you succeed. No, let's bust that already. Okay, so according to a statistics, solopreneurs actually are profitable in a year. All right, 77% of entrepreneurs can be profitable in a year, but a bigger number of solopreneurs are actually more profitable on their second year because they prepared. So again, if you go back to our earlier slides, I've already mentioned this, that you really have to be prepared. So you have to prepare, your business plan, everything else. It doesn't need to be perfect, but at least you can avoid some mistakes so that at least by year two you are prepared. So I'm sure that you're going to ask me the question um why we weren't that successful on our second year. It actually took us to our third year. But if we didn't pivot, probably would still be drowning right now. So, but because we decided to pivot, that's why we're now at that, point of being profitable. So there. So those are the things that you have to remember to to help you, hopefully to help you get ready for your journey as entrepreneurs. Now that now that we've busted the myths, you already know if you're prepared becoming a business owner, and you already saw the playbook of most entrepreneurs. The biggest question is, if your biggest client leaves tomorrow, what are you gonna do? Are you going to panic? Will you slash prices? Or will you rely on your systems and network? So let's remove that idea that entrepreneurship is just all about titles, hustles, and prestige. No, it's not about that. Entrepreneurship is about your grit, your purpose, and knowing your why. So these, especially your why is the most important thing. So even if, of course, making money is, you know, the biggest why, but I'm sure there's still a why behind that. So just a stat recap from the last few slides that we talked about. As you know, 42 million of most business owners in the US are solopreneurs, and that businesses fail. 50% of businesses fail within 5 years. So you just have to be prepared so that you can be successful beyond 5 years. And of course, you have to make sure that you manage your cash flow well so that your business can scale and grow. And of course, you can be profitable in 1 year if you are well prepared. So, with that, I'd like to give this thought or this quote from Jean Paul Getty. He was an American oil industrialist in the 1940s. So, he said, "Patience is the greatest business asset. Wait for the right time to make your moves." So, you just don't, just because you have a great idea, you just leap and not think about the other things. You have to wait until the leap is right. So with that, um, I end my presentation. And if you have any questions, that's wonderful because that would be your first entrepreneurial leap.
Hey Sophie, I just had a quick question. Um,
Yes,
I know
Devin.
earlier we touched upon like stress and failure when we were talking about myths, and I just wanted to know if you had any like advice or you had any like strategies to deal with stress, especially when entering like the entrepreneurial setting.
That's a very good question, Devin, because yeah, as I mentioned that, stress is really a huge thing, especially when you're starting out. I For me, what has worked well is that I bounce off ideas because I have a business partner. So I bounce off ideas with my business partner. But also, well, as I've mentioned earlier, it's actually great to have mentors and peers because if you're a solopreneur, then you can bounce off your ideas with your mentor, and then they can, then you would actually realize that you're not alone. That the stress that you're feeling is not just your own. Um, it's not you're not the only one who's feeling that type of stress, if that makes sense.
No, perfect, it does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sophie, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciated you in this presentation. And thanks again for joining us. And for those of you who are in attendance, thank you for attending. And if you view this after the fact, I hope you found this insightful and informative. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great Tuesday.